Welcome to Infolive TV at our Jerusalem studio for our weekly debate. With me here is Gerald Kessel, Senior Political Analyst, and Yoni Ben Menachem, Director General of Israel Radio. My first question to you two is, of course, deals with Alan Johnston's release, the hot topic of this week. In your opinion, Gerald, how does Johnston's release affect the issue of Gilad Shalit, and how will it affect Hamas's international standing and legitimacy?
There's no doubt that the way Hamas has handled this, the Johnston affair, and making sure that under its tutelage he was released, has added to its international standing. Now, the British, for instance, who were directly affected, a BBC man, were quick to say that while they hailed Hamas's role, this did not change Hamas's standing with the British government, and the decision that has been taken in Europe to treat Hamas as a terror organization and therefore not part of any negotiations. However, Hamas's credibility is definitely on a high, they can deliver, and as such, that may be their way to get into the political game, if that's what they want, and it seems as if they want that, at least for the time being.
I don't think that on the long run it's going to change the European position towards Hamas. I think it was just a gimmick or maneuver for PR, from as far as Hamas is concerned, to create some positive or positive public opinion in Britain or maybe in Europe. But definitely they remain a terrorist organization. I don't think that on the long run anything will change. As far as Gilad Shalit is concerned, and the chances to release him as a result of the release of Alan Johnston, I think basically the ball is in the Israeli court and not in the court of Hamas. And what we need is an Israeli political decision, because Israel objects to the demands of Hamas to release the hardcore of the Palestinian terrorists. We were talking about 500 or about 400 to 500 terrorists, as we call it, we say in Hebrew, with blood on their hands, that the General Security Service is against the release of these terrorists. And what is needed is a political decision. If once there will be a political decision as far as the cabinet is concerned, then the release of Gilad Shalit can go ahead. But until this moment, as far as I know, the political echelon in Israel objects the release of the hardcore of the terrorists that Hamas demands, and this is why I think there will be nothing going on as far as the release of Gilad Shalit.
The relevant question is again an Israeli decision as much a European and an American decision. Do we deal with Hamas at all? What Hamas has done here with Alan Johnston won't directly lead to a change, but if Hamas intends to do something different, then there will be the same imperative of Israel and of the West in general to make a decision on whether it's continuing to say Hamas never, 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 because it is not just because of its ideology, but because of its actual designation as a terror organization. That will become the key, and we may be in for some, I wouldn't say surprises, but from shifts in policy, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yoni, in your opinion, should Israel's response to the Hamas takeover of the Gaza Strip be limited, as it is at the moment, to diplomatic isolation, limited incursions, and strengthening Abbas in the West Bank? Or do you see a large-scale ground operation as a necessary step in the future?
I think eventually everybody knows that it's only a matter of time until there will be a big military operation in Gaza. We also have to take in consideration the remarks of the new Defense Minister, Mr. Ehud Barak, who said that he wants Israel to regain its deterrence again. Okay, and Israel will not put up on the long run with what is happening in Gaza, the smuggling of the weapons, the Hamas getting stronger, Iranian experts in Gaza preparing the Hamas for a war with Israel, and so on. So it's only a matter of time, because the Hamas is making preparations on the ground, maybe in coordination with Hezbollah, that when there will be a second round with Israel, between Israel and Hezbollah in the north, there will also be some rocket attacks from Gaza at the same time, simultaneously. And this is a big danger for Israel. And eventually Israel will have to go into Gaza for a military operation on a large scale in order to destroy the military infrastructure that was built after the disengagement from Gaza for the Hamas and for the other Palestinian factions. So it's a matter of time only. Right now, I think Israel will sit and wait until the right minute will come, or even if it will not be a planned moment to attack Gaza, Israel can be dragged into it. If another or some Israeli soldiers will be kidnapped by the Hamas, if there will be a rocket attack on Sderot and there will be a lot of Israeli casualties, Israel will have to respond and will have to go into Gaza. So it's only a matter of time. I think there's a consensus in Israel now that the concept of disengagement failed. Of unilateral withdrawal from South Lebanon, from Gaza, and the military contingency plans are talking about a big operation in Gaza, dismantling the infrastructure of Hamas, and then withdrawing and staying in the north of Gaza for a security zone that will guarantee that there will be no Qassam rockets towards Israel. This is the contingency plans. And I think eventually Israel will have to do it, because I don't see any other solution to dismantle the military infrastructure, which is a growing threat to Israel's security.
Yeah, but then you're suggesting two things. One level is Israel will take whatever military measures are necessary to curb the Hamas threat from Gaza.
Right.
That's on a tactical level. That does not counter what you afterwards said, that Israel made a mistake of disengaging militarily from Gaza, and that therefore has to go back and
No, I didn't say it made a mistake. I think that there is a consensus after what happened. Is that the unilateral withdrawal from South Lebanon.
And I think it's improved Israel's situation no end. Okay. And I think a lot of people, there's a confusion because the rockets are flying, because it's difficult sometimes to have soldiers kidnapped across a border, that the conception of disengagement, there's a confusion between the conception of disengagement and the results on the ground, whether today, tomorrow, or even long term in the need to go into Gaza.
I didn't say that it's a mistake to withdraw. I say that you have to withdraw maybe within the framework of an agreement with the other side. But if you withdraw unilaterally, you only put the Israel in more danger, because there's nobody there to keep the security after you withdraw.
But I'm contending that if you'd have tried to withdraw unilaterally, not withdrawn unilaterally, perhaps it should have been coordinated, yes, but if Israel had not withdrawn, Israel would have been in a far worse situation, even if it had been. Because Israel was in a situation, we tend to forget that. And that's what I think the whole disengagement philosophy was not about advancing Israel towards peace between the Israelis and Palestinians, but fighting Hamas on better terms outside Gaza. Now, to say we're going to go back into Gaza, if as you say, that is the argument being used in widespread, that would be a mistaken, a double mistake. A mistake where the strategy, perhaps the tactics didn't work all that well in the way disengagement took place, but the philosophy of disengagement was a very positive one.
Because I don't see any other way to dismantle the military infrastructure of Hamas without going in. There's no other way. You cannot do it from outside of Gaza. You cannot dismantle the military infrastructure from outside. We're trying to do it now, and we're failing. We're not succeeding.
One moment. Regarding such a large-scale operation in the Gaza Strip, Ehud Barak, as you both know, is much more experienced than his predecessor. My question is, would Ehud Olmert's extremely low popularity, not to say incompetence, prevent him from approving such an operation if it were to be suggested by Ehud Barak?
It's not a matter of popularity. There is, let's say, a nightmare for the political echelon. After what happened in Lebanon, the last war, and the Vinograd Investigation Committee, I think the political this political echelon now, headed by Olmert, feels that its hands are tied, and it cannot make another military operation in Gaza because of what happened in South Lebanon. Eventually, the situation on the ground and the reality is stronger than any investigation committee, and there might be a moment that the political echelon will have to make a decision to do this and to go into Gaza, because otherwise he will be compromising the Israeli security. So this is the situation. It's very complicated.
You're absolutely right, Yoni, that there's the inhibitions, political inhibitions, because of the perceived outcome of the war in Lebanon, and Olmert's own fragile status as right. National leader at the moment, which will certainly inhibit in any immediate, unless there are extreme circumstances, and even possibly in extreme circumstances. Israel, despite its wishes to restore the status quo ante with respect to Hamas's strength in Gaza, might find that it's not all that easy to do in a way that perhaps it will have to live with a difficult border, but rather to concretize the border more than concretize the border from within. So I'm suggesting that I don't believe it's, even though that's the projected will of the Israeli military to do it, given all these inhibiting factors, I'm not absolutely sure that it's a definite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The Arab world, there have been reports about efforts being made in the Arab world to renew the dialogue between Khaled Mashal and Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, renew the dialogue essentially between Fatah and Hamas. Do you think it's at all possible, or have they passed that stage permanently of dialogue?
No, I think they will resume the dialogue. It's only a matter of time. They will resume the dialogue because they don't have any other option. The Palestinian public will not accept this separation between the West Bank and Gaza. Right now, the Fatah is furious, of course, at Abu Mazen is furious at Khaled Mashal, at the Hamas, for what they call a coup d'etat that happened in Gaza against the Palestinian legitimacy. Of course, they're blaming them for destroying the Palestinian dreams and so on. Right now, they're furious, but eventually they will have to come and negotiate, because the power of Hamas is increasing, not only in Gaza, after they took over Gaza, also in the West Bank. So I think the Fatah is very weak now, and eventually they will have to resume the negotiation with Hamas and try to come to terms with the Hamas, how to split power and so on.
In my opinion, what Israel should be doing is disengaging from the Palestinians as far as possible.
Exactly, we should not intervene in the Palestinian affairs.
Israel's issue is Israel's issues. And Israel should determine its policy in terms of how the other side, or in terms, as Olmert and Sharon did, of taking an initiative which suits Israel's interests, which I believe the disengagement did, and do the things that suit Israel's interests, and not try to influence Palestinians or anywhere else in the Arab world to suit Israel's interests.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Yoni ben Menachem, Gerald Kessel. Thank you.